name is Daniel Schoonmaker, and I am the Executive Director of West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum and the facilitator of the Michigan Sustainable Business Forum project and the Lakeshore Sustainability Initiative, which are co-hosting today's meeting. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're not familiar with the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum or Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, we're an organization that exists to promote business practices that demonstrate environmental stewardship, economic vitality, and social responsibility through education and collaboration. We're looking forward to today's presentation, the DTE plan for achieving net zero. I'd like to first highlight a few upcoming events we have, including our Michigan College Earth Day 50.5. That's on October 22nd. The 50th and a half anniversary of Earth Day. This is a virtual conference for faculty, staff, students, and community. And we're hopeful to provide a collaborative space for Michigan colleges to empower the future generation in sustainability work and to increase voter education. We have a registration. We have a link to further information on there, which you'll also find in the chat once we get underway. Before we get going today, I would first like to welcome some new corporate members to the forum. RRS Recycling out of Ann Arbor, Innovative Solar, and I'd like to highlight our upcoming upcoming working group and committee opportunities. If you'd like to become more involved in our work, we have a dozen or so committees and roundtables and working groups that we organize on a monthly basis to address issues of strategic concern to our membership and other stakeholders, looking at things such as climate change, regional growth and sustainability, solid waste recycling, campus sustainability, and so on. Please reach out to our membership manager, Rose Spickler, if you have any questions about those. And now I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. Matthew Paul, President and Chief Operating Officer of DTE Gas. And H.G. Decker, Director of Sales and Marketing for DTE Gas. Thank you both for joining us today. We're really excited about this presentation for you taking the time to speak to our group. And sir, I'm going to hand the screen over to you at your convenience.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Michigan Sustainable Business Forum for having us here today. It's a great honor to be with you and talk to such a great organization, great group of folks. Since this is my first time talking to this organization, I thought I'd spend just a few minutes and introduce myself. I've been in this position, president of DTE Gas, since last April, but prior to that, spent quite some time with the company. I've been with DTE for 20 years, several years on the non-reg side, and then the last 7 years with the electric company, where my most recent role was running the generation organization for the electric side. I did grow up in Michigan. I've been married for 28 years to my high school sweetheart, and I can assure you that as hard as I work, she works much harder than I do. We've got 4 boys, ages 16 to 24. Our youngest has autism and epilepsy, and I only mention that because if I run into anyone out there who's got passion for that community, I'd love to speak with you and compare notes. Something my wife and I are fairly active in. I do spend a lot of time in the Grand Rapids area, not only because of its importance to the company, but also some personal draws for me. I've got 2 sons that go to Grand Valley, so go Lakers. And my brother lives in Ada. My brother and his family, he's married and has two daughters that live in Ada. I'm also a board member of the Right Place For those of you who are familiar, I'm sure most of you are, it's a fantastic organization committed to bringing new business and jobs to the region. So that's been great. So it's been, it's a really important area for us, and really glad to be here today. And really for me, it's been a privilege to be part of DTE Gas. It really is a family, mostly because of our people, but also because of the tradition. We've been in the Grand Rapids area, a part of this community since 1938, when Detroit City Gas and Grand Rapids Gas merged, and then merged to form Mishcon. And then Mishcon merged with Detroit Edison, of course, in 2001, and we renamed it as DTE Gas. Our customer base has grown. We now have 1.3 million customers across the state. About 600,000 of those customers are in what we call Greater Michigan, and about 300,000 of those are in the Grand Rapids area. So again, we have a pretty large presence in Grand Rapids. We connect about 10 or 11,000 new customers per year, and about 7,500 of those end up being in the ever expanding and growing Greater Michigan area around Grand Rapids, Traverse City, and those types of areas. We serve Grand Rapids out of our Wealthy station. It's one of our largest stations across the state. And in total, we've got 17 offices and service centers across Greater Michigan. So again, really important region of the state for us. So now I'm going to shift into the main topic of today's discussion. And I'm going to start by saying that our CEO, Jaron Arcia, he often says climate change is the defining public policy issue of our time, and that we have responsibility to be a leader for the environment, we being everyone at DTE. So in that vein, DTE has made several industry-leading environmental commitments over the last several years, and I'd like to kind of walk through those now and speak specifically to some of the gas company commitments. Then I'm going to turn it over to HJ. He'll get into even a bit more detail on some of the key areas for us, and then hopefully we'll have some time to answer some questions. So back in 2017, our electric company, DTE Electric, was one of the first utility companies to commit to carbon reductions in a significant way. And I know that's only 3 to 4 years ago, but at that time, there really wasn't anyone yet in the space making commitments. And at that time, we committed to 80% reduction by 2040. Since that time, and actually mid last year, then we were one of the first electric companies to commit to net zero carbon reductions by 2050. And we're already doing it. The electric company has already reduced emissions about 30%, carbon emissions about 30% since 2005. And in doing that, we've already retired several coal units. Within the next 2 years, we will be retiring 3 out of our 5 remaining coal plants. That represents about 20% of our generating capacity. And so we're well on our way to achieving those commitments. Along with that, as we retire coal, we've been building renewables since 2009. In fact, DTE has been the largest investor in renewables in the state. We've invested over $3 billion in wind and solar generation and infrastructure, and with a lot more to come. By 2030, we will triple our current renewable generation capacity. And by the way, we have about 1,300 megawatts today. So by 2030, we'll have around 4,000 megawatts of renewables. And then by 2040, we'll expand even further. And at that time, we hope to have about 11 million solar panels in our portfolio. So renewables obviously are a big area of growth for us on the electric side. And then in July of this year on the gas side, DTE Gas joined electric in committing to net zero by 2050 in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. This announcement was an acceleration and expansion of a previous commitment that we had made a couple of years prior to achieve 80% reduction in methane by 2040. So we have joined the net zero by 2050. And in doing this, we're taking a unique approach. It's really a holistic approach across the entire natural gas value chain. And by that, we mean it's not only committing to our taking our emissions to net zero within our infrastructure, but also working with our suppliers and customers to do the same. So let's talk through each of those pieces in terms of what that means. First, I'll talk about our suppliers and what are we going to do to drive to net zero with our suppliers by 2050. I guess I would sort of simply summarize that, or put it simply and say, we're going to procure gas from suppliers that choose to reduce their carbon footprint with us. We are currently working very closely with the gas production and supply industry to bring greater transparency with respect to emissions from natural gas production. And in order to do this, we're working with the American Gas Association. We're very close to finalizing a standard for how emissions should be measured and reported from producers, shippers, and distributors. And we were recently one of the first companies to report our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions. We recently did that through this natural gas sustainability initiative that I'm speaking of. And then within the next few years, so we're going to work closely with our suppliers, and we're expecting them to report emissions in a similar fashion by the end of 2022. Well, I know that's a couple of years away, but we've got a lot of folks to work with, and we feel like several will do so here in early 2021, which will gain momentum, and then hopefully a large portion of the industry will be doing so shortly thereafter. And then within the next 3 years after that, we plan to actually formally expand our purchasing criteria to include an evaluation of methane intensity in terms of gas that we purchase. We need to work closely with the commission as we do that, but we're confident it's going to align with their goals and thoughts as well, and we'll be able to do that. And then our long term, obviously, our goal is to procure gas from suppliers that have achieved net zero across their infrastructure. And I might add, we've already shifted a fair portion of our supply base over to the Appalachia region, which has a much lower methane intensity level. And so we're well on our way to hitting some of these targets. In fact, we've already lowered our carbon footprint with our suppliers by 30%. So next, let's shift to DTE Gas's own infrastructure and our operations and what we're going to do to get to net zero. Really the core component of this plan with our operations and our infrastructure is to continue to modernize our distribution system. And by that, I mean, we're going to replace aging cast iron and steel pipe with new durable plastic polyethylene piping. And when we do that, replace that with new pipe, it substantially reduces our methane leaks across our system, and really is going to be the driving force behind our plan. But this plan to replace our main and associated services with this new pipe, it's a multi-year plan. We're going to replace about 200 miles a year, and that'll go through 2035. This year alone, we're going to replace about 57 miles in Grand Rapids and Muskegon as well. That's part of that 200 miles. And so when we work through this program by 2035, we will have achieved about 80% of our system's carbon reduction goals. Helping us with that, we'll also be making improvements on our transmission system as well. And then we also are upgrading the way that we inspect and maintain our compressor fleet, capturing blowdown when we have work going on and things like that. So put all that together and we'll be well over 80% of the way there. And then for the remaining up to 20% or so, we are right now working on our plans to invest in renewable natural gas and biosequestration offsets for that last 20%. And then finally, I'd like to talk about our customers and how we intend to provide options for our customers to get to net zero as well. So I'll talk about kind of near term and then longer term. So near term, we're going to do two things. Number one, we're going to expand our energy efficiency programs. And as you may know, this is going to be fantastic. It's going to have a dual benefit of not only helping our customers reduce their carbon footprint by burning less natural gas, but also reduce their energy costs. So that'll be a key aspect. And then the second thing we're doing, and HJ is going to talk a lot more about this, but we're really excited that we're expanding our voluntary green gas program. So this is a program that will be expanded. We already have a sort of a modest pilot program going on now. We're going to expand it starting in early 2021, and it will allow customers, as I said, to offset their gas emissions up to 100% by working with us to bundle their gas purchases with carbon offsets. And as I said, HJ will speak more on that here in a minute. And then longer term, with our customers, we also know that we're going to have to lean on technologies such as hydrogen, carbon capture, and geothermal. We plan to continue to help these technologies gain more traction by participating in studies and pilots. We're already participating in some today, and we're evaluating how we can step up and do more of that as we go forward. So I guess the bottom line for us is that when you take this holistic approach and this plan that I've just described that stretches beyond our assets and infrastructure and includes our suppliers and our customers, we will remove over 6 million tons a year of carbon from the environment. That is the equivalent of taking approximately 1.4 million cars off the road, or offsetting carbon emissions for over 1 million homes. So we're really proud of that. And we're also, as I've said on a few of these pieces along the way, but we're really proud that we're already on our way. We're not just waiting until the 2040s to do all of this. We've already reduced emissions by about 30%. And by 2030, we expect to be somewhere around 50%, perhaps a little over 50% of the way there. So we're really excited about the commitments and the plans that I've just outlined. And I think that's because natural gas is an abundant, affordable, reliable, clean energy source, but it's incumbent on us to help make it even cleaner. And hopefully you're excited as we are about some of the plans that we've outlined here in terms of doing just that. So again, I'll be back to help answer questions here in a bit, but at this time, I'd like to sort of reintroduce H.J. Decker, our Director of Sales and Marketing, who will speak in more detail, as I said, about our new voluntary green gas program, as well as some other exciting projects we're working on. So thanks again for giving me that time, and we'll talk to you here again in a few minutes. So over to you, H.J.
Thanks, Matt, and hello, everyone. Like Matt, this is my first time speaking with many of you, so I'll do a quick introduction as well. I'm currently, as mentioned, the Director of Sales and Marketing for DTE Gas, responsible for a number of customer-facing business units, such as industrial sales, residential sales, things of that nature, marketing. I've been in this position since 2016, and I've been with DTE since 2013. Prior to this role, I worked for the electric utility, actually, focused on long-term planning, particularly around our generation portfolio, and did some of the very early work on what you saw early in Matt's presentation around our net zero plan for the electric utility. Prior to DTE, I worked in New York City as a finance professional covering the power and utility industry, which is how I gained a lot of knowledge around the industry, both on the gas and electric side. Although I didn't grow up in Michigan, I've grown to love Michigan, enjoy traveling throughout the state. I especially enjoy Grand Rapids. I think it's a amazing and vibrant city, and I always enjoy myself when I come over here to Grand Rapids, which in more normal times I used to do quite often. As Matt mentioned, we began putting together our plan to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And in doing that, we expanded our view to include both suppliers and customers. We know there's a growing segment of our customers who want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from their own energy usage. To address this desire, we'll be introducing a voluntary program early next year to help them do just that. Our voluntary emissions offset program will use a combination of both renewable natural gas, and I'll get into a little bit of that later, and carbon offsets to offset a portion or all of a customer's gas use-based emissions at their homes and or small businesses. This new voluntary program really is an affordable solution to address emissions, as customers can achieve a 25% reduction in their gas use related to emissions for only $4 a month. The elective pricing options go up to a full 100% reduction in their gas use related emissions for just $16 a month. Our program will be focused on using Michigan-based resources to achieve our emission reductions. We're still working to firm up our supply for the program, but it's looking like we'll be utilizing some of the renewable natural gas from the Grand Rapids wastewater treatment facility, which I'll describe in more detail later, for our program supply, and the carbon offsets will come from a forest project located in the Upper Peninsula. A little bit more on the forestry piece. As you know, trees within forests absorb CO2 and the atmosphere from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. A forest carbon offset is created when an equivalent amount of CO2 is absorbed into a tree, which would have occurred elsewhere, like when a customer turns on their furnace. We will be helping to preserve forest so they are able to absorb more CO2, which we can then use to help our customers negate the source of emissions occurring from use of natural gas appliances in their homes or small businesses. And equally important, as Matt mentioned before, we will be enhancing our customer energy efficiency programs to help our customers both save money and reduce their carbon footprint. We are targeting an increase in the annual amount of energy efficiency savings we target for our customers. Another item I want to highlight is around renewable natural gas and how it is used for transportation fuel, and talk about a unique project we helped put together. By way of background, DTE owns and operates 8 compressed natural gas vehicle fueling locations across the state of Michigan, with 2 right here in Grand Rapids area. One is at our Wealthy location that Matt mentioned earlier, and one is located in Wyoming. Compressed natural gas, or CNG, is an alternative fuel choice to run vehicles compared to gasoline or diesel, and is approximately 25% cleaner from an emissions perspective than those fuels. Most of the vehicles which use CNG are considered heavy duty. In fact, the city of Grand Rapids has a couple of refuse trucks which are powered by CNG and fill up at our DTEs, local CNG stations in the area. Another example is the Rapid Bus System, which opened a CNG station a few years ago. The transit system has a plan to convert all of its approximately 150 buses to natural gas within the next 5 years or so. To date, I believe they've converted about half of their fleet so far. Related to CNG, and briefly mentioned before, we're also working with the city of Grand Rapids on a transformative project to create renewable natural gas at the city's wastewater resource recovery facility. The city of Grand Rapids, DTE, and the Rapid Transit System are part of a unique environmental partnership to provide renewable natural gas to the Rapid to run its public transportation vehicles. The city is installing 3 anaerobic digesters to accommodate a growing amount of waste being sent to its treatment facility. The biodigesters are expected to start digesting waste in early 2021. These biodigesters are an environmental alternative designed to reduce waste going into the city's wastewater system. It takes wastewater sludge, pipes it into large tanks now under construction, and quote unquote cooks it down to a much smaller, more manageable solids. The methane biogas, a byproduct of the process, will be captured, cleaned by the city to utility pipeline specifications, creating renewable natural gas. And then it will be injected onto DTE's system. Like I said, the renewable natural gas that will be produced will be then delivered to the DTE pipeline network for use as transportation fuel by the Rapid and DTE-owned compressed natural gas stations throughout the state. Using RNG instead of diesel or gasoline for transportation fuel allows DTE and the Rapid to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help improve local air quality for Michigan residents. As mentioned previously, a small amount of the RNG from this project, approximately 10 to 15%, is also being slated to be used to supply our voluntary program, which I described in detail before. The use of the RNG for transportation will also create revenue for the city due to available credits associated with the renewable fuel standard issued by the EPA. For every gallon equivalent of RNG used in the city buses and DTE CNG stations, the city will receive a monetary credit. In all, the project is expected to generate revenues in excess of $3 million a year for the city, and it will also help lower the fueling costs for the Rapid Bus System by approximately $50,000 per year. And finally, I'd like to also highlight that our DTE Foundation also focuses on environmental issues. We made a $1 million donation to the Nature Conservancy to protect Great Lakes shorelines and mitigate storm runoff in the Detroit River. We sponsor recycling at festivals across the state, including the National Cherry Festival, and we have planted thousands of trees across the state. Thank you for your time. Matt and I are happy to take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, HG and Matt. As a clarification from the slides that you're presenting, that we just that we just saw. Is it the long-term intention for DTE Gas to move away from the use of fossil fuel type natural gas, so those that be extracted from the ground, in favor of those that are produced through natural and industrial processes, such as the wastewater treatment plant?
Was that, let's see, that was Daniel. Thanks, Daniel. Good, really good question. So, you know, we believe that natural gas, including fossil gas, is going to be a critical component of our long-term energy future. But we do need to continue to do things to help make it cleaner over time. So when you say move away, I think a percentage of the fossil gas will likely be, say, renewable natural gas that HJ talked about earlier. And then we're also looking at things like hydrogen, perhaps using hydrogen as a blend with natural gas. You know, there's a lot of research out there around hydrogen that's kind of heating up. I know a number of utilities in Europe are looking at it closely, and the general thought is that somewhere in the 10 to 20% range could be blended in with natural gas, and we could still utilize our infrastructure to deliver that product where it was needed. So I think through things like renewable natural gas and hydrogen, we will certainly be blending in and replacing a decent chunk of the fossil gas. But it's still going to be a component of the overall picture. And I'll ask
Okay.
any other thoughts on that one? That's an excellent first question.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Matt. I think natural gas will play a role for some time on you know, not only in our lives and our industrial processes and in our power generation for some time, but we are the industry is making a lot of efforts to clean it up and maybe transition away from fossil gas a little bit toward these other sources. Another exciting area is carbon capture, right? And sequestration is another technology that people are looking at that might really help out some of the industries that are heavy gas users today, so that they can continue to be competitive in the long term.
I want to pull up a few questions from the participants today, and thank you both for answering that question. That was a very helpful clarification from my understanding. So, are all of the options being treated equally within your greenhouse gas accounting? With electricity, we distinguish between RECs, renewable energy credits, and offsets, carbon offsets. But it seems like you're not making that distinction between the trees and renewable natural gas options. And that question is coming from Danny McGee of Sustainable Research Group.
Yeah, it's another really good question. So go ahead, HJ. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we do make a distinction between renewable natural gas and the carbon offsets that we'll use. There are some protocols out there on the carbon offset side that we'll use to calculate how much CO2 we actually do offset. And then we apply that to what a typical residential customer would burn during a year, which, you know, you can equate to, based on some EPA standards, how much CO2 that typical customer would produce. And then RNG, we are assuming that a one-for-one, a molecule of RNG offsets a molecule of fossil gas, is essentially what we're doing.
We've got a few questions about renewable energy electrical developments in different ways for solar and wind, and I think before I ask any specific questions related to that, can you share it all to the extent that electrification, so moving things that are currently powered by natural gas to electrical usage, is playing into your current planning and thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think electrification is something that will certainly play a role, and something that we're very open to with of course, the biggest, sort of largest business unit of ours is the electric companies. So we're certainly open to that, and in some cases working with folks to do that in various pockets and so forth. I think when you look at it on a large scale, and we've done a lot of research obviously in this space, but when you look at it on a large scale, especially in our cooler climate here, the economics and affordability just aren't there yet. They may be a decade or two or three from now, but you're looking at pretty significant costs to switch out the appliances, and then even the operating costs are quite a bit higher on the electrification side. So when we try to do everything that we can to strike the right balance for our customers around from what's best for the environment, but also what's affordable and reliable. And so that's where we see, will there be some and some pockets here and there? We think so, but in these northern climates, we feel it's probably going to be quite some time. And the other thing that has to be factored into the thinking, and again, this would frankly be a huge opportunity for us on the electric side, but as electrification plays out, and if and when it gets to large scale adoption, it's going to be a pretty massive investment on the electric grid and the electric infrastructure. And that also is going to put some pretty significant pressure on affordability for electric and gas type customers. So when you put all that together, we think there certainly is a modest role, but in the north here, it's probably going to be quite some time before it plays out in a big way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just one thing I'd like to mention is, our electric utility is very active in the electrification of vehicle space. We believe that that's sort of, to be honest with you, low-hanging fruit. It's becoming almost on parity with gasoline vehicles today. So we are working a lot with customers, not only residential, but commercial, and people that have large parking lots to help them with their infrastructure, making sure they can get charging stations and things like that. So we are we have programs in place in our electric utility that do focus on making the conversion from gasoline to electric vehicles much easier.
Kind of playing off that, when you have conversations with stakeholders, people talk about renewable energy. I think I imagine they're most often their heads are in the space with the on the electric side, thinking of how solar and wind. To what degree do you find yourself having conversations about these the natural gas space? What you can do, what I think you can accurately consider renewables that are coming from sources like landfill gas or the wastewater treatment plant captures or other anaerobic processes.
Yeah, so I guess first I ought to mention we through our sister company DTE Power and Industrial, we are one of the largest developers of renewable natural gas projects in the country, if not the largest. We've got over 30 landfill gas projects throughout the country, and we have now, I believe, 6 or 7 dairy farm digester renewable gas projects. So we're heavily invested in this space. We want to continue to be a leader. We think it's a growing area, and we think it's certainly the right thing to do for the environment and our customers as well, to capture that methane that would have otherwise been emitted to the environment, capturing it, cleaning it up, and then utilizing it in place of fossil gas. So so we're very active in that space. We see it as a big part of our future. But I think when you look at just the massive volumes of natural gas that's used in this country, the renewable natural gas piece could be maybe 5 to 10% over time, but it's not going to be it won't be a majority. It won't replace a majority of that fossil natural gas. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying really important area, growth area, something we're very focused on. But as we said before, it's going to have to be a combination of a lot of things that help get us there.
Yeah, it does. And especially considering the much larger carbon footprint for methane versus carbon dioxide and other emissions, that it certainly seems like a growth opportunity as you redefine what it means to use renewable energy.
Absolutely. It's something we're absolutely committed to. It's one of the focus areas of our power and industrial business, and we've got a big group of folks all over that market. So we're definitely in agreement, Daniel.
And this, I'll come back to that one in a second. This one's from Nate Langle, who's who runs the sustainability education at Grand Rapids Public Museum School, and he's hopeful you might share how DTE weighs the profit versus the planet.
Yeah, so we think it's very much aligned. I think since the beginning of our announcements, we have been committed to being not only being a leader in the environmental space, but doing it in an affordable way. And I think there are those that are out there that say you can only do one or the other, but we disagree with that. We think that you can do both. And so we've, our planning has been done with a tremendous amount of analysis. We've tried to be very, very thoughtful, do it in a as aggressively and quickly as we can, but in a measured way that also balances that affordability aspect. And I think, by sort of stepping our way there, we've achieved that. I mean, one other piece, I guess I'll also comment around this question. One of the things with renewable energy that's also important in terms of really thinking your way through and stepping your way into it. Although we are the largest investor in renewable energy in the state, we also are making sure that we have enough baseload generation to marry up with those renewables, because when the sun's not shining and wind's not blowing, we have to have other generation to lean on, and that's one reason why we're so excited. We're building as many may know, we're building a state-of-the-art combined cycle natural gas plant right now. And that plant, it's about 1,100 megawatts. That plant is going to enable huge growth in renewables, because when you put them together, you have low cost efficient generation that's environmentally friendly, and that also provides reliability for when the sun's not shining and wind's not blowing. So hopefully that answers the question. We're trying to be very thoughtful and balance those items that you've asked about.
Great, thank you. So I can't be accused of throwing too many softballs your way. Are you worried about losing gas-only customers, especially in this side of the state where a majority of customers are gas-only?
So the questions before were softballs, huh, Daniel? It's something that we're going to continue to study and watch, but we've got, I think, as I said before, our largest subsidiary is the electric company. If customers did end up going more and more to electrification, presumably that would be happening all over the place, and that would be a big uplift for our electric company. So we feel like we're pretty balanced and taking a pretty logical, balanced approach to that. As the leader of the gas company, it's always something I'm going to be somewhat concerned about, but I'm also confident that by doing the right thing, we'll land in the right place, and I'll have a job somewhere. But as I said before, when we study it, Daniel, it's something that will have a place in pockets in the near term, but we really see a big move to electrification because of that the affordability and the massive investment to the electric grid that's needed, and the desire for customers to be able to choose how to heat their homes. And layering on top of that, our plans that we've outlined to clean up the gas product, we just feel like it's something that's going to occur over several decades versus anything in the near term. Anything to add to that, HJ?
No, I think that's right. I think, obviously as the gas company, we worry about losing customers, whether it be to electrification or the economy or anything like that. But we're certainly not doing anything to hinder people from moving to electrification. We think it will happen in, like Matt said, pockets, and it'll happen slowly over time, and it might accelerate in a few decades when the economics work out better. But again, like I said, we are a dual utility, maybe not out here in the West, but certainly in the Southeast. So we watch it carefully, and that's why we're sort of offering products as well that clean up our gas product to some extent, so that people can feel a little bit better about continuing to use natural gas to heat their homes.
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for being kind of willing to talk about how your company, how your segment's position fits in with some of these potential transitions over the next decade and decades here. Looking at another space, and this is a question of mine that hasn't come from any of the Q&A or the chats. And again, a reminder, if you do have questions, please feel free to ask those in there if you're participating today. How are you thinking about equity and a just transition within your plans, and how it affects under-resourced communities and those who are may or may not currently be struggling to pay their bills, but are likely to be more impacted both by transitions in the business, as well as the impacts of climate change and pollution in general.
Yeah, great question, Daniel. We've got, as you probably know, we have a number of customers that would fall into the category of low income. I think the number is in the range of a couple 100,000 of our customers would be considered low income. So they're a huge focus of what we do. I would say that where we try to focus our time and effort is around connecting those low income customers to the various programs that are available to help them pay their bills as they move forward, and help them keep their head above water. As an example, we recently donated $10 million to Thaw, and we work really closely with Thaw and connecting them with our low-income customers to help them pay their bills. There's a number of low-income governmental programs that our customer service team focuses on to connect our folks with, and then we have a number of payment plans that we work with folks on to help them make ends meet over time. So it's a huge focus of ours in that space, and it's going to continue to be that way going forward. I know I'm in a lot of meetings with our CEO. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not so good, but I can tell you that one of his top focuses is to continue to try to do more and more to help this segment of our customers. And again,
Yeah.
I'll see HJ if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, another area where we do a lot of assistance for low income is around energy efficiency, right? So we are allocated a bucket of dollars through that are all our ratepayers essentially pay for, and then we allocate it's becoming larger and larger, a portion of that that bucket of energy efficiency, that may be incentives, rebates, programs, things like that, is getting earmarked for low-income assistance as well. So we are both on the electric and gas side, really trying to help out some of these communities that might be in kind of older, less efficient buildings, appliances, things like that. So we spend a lot of money around energy efficiency as well, which, like you said, less usage does two things. It lowers the bill and it lowers the emissions. So it's all good on the energy efficiency side.
You mentioned hydrogen earlier in the presentation. Can you share a little bit of your thoughts on how that's going to fit into the portfolio and whether you have plans to increase its use?
Yeah, I can field that one. So, hydrogen has become a very interesting topic for the gas industry as well as the electric industry to some extent. Hydrogen is flammable, as many of you know. And what they're doing is they're looking at how much hydrogen can we blend with natural gas. Hydrogen, when it burns too, it doesn't have a C in it, right? It's just H2. So there's no carbon emissions associated with hydrogen. So we're looking at how much can we blend in with natural gas, not only in sort of our pipeline network for maybe use in residential and commercial applications, but also can it be blended, sort of at the source of power generation. So we talked about combined cycle plants and peaking plants being needed to kind of maintain that grid stability while we add what is going to be a huge amount of renewables. Is there a way to put hydrogen into the power plants as well so that they burn less natural gas at that source? So it's still early days. There needs to be a significant amount of research and development. Obviously, in putting something other than natural gas into a system that was meant and designed for natural gas needs to be done carefully and thoughtfully. But it's definitely something that the industry is looking at, and DTE is looking for ways to support some of this research and development and kind of moving the ball on this. I think it is a bit of a longer term solution, but we are optimistic that within 10 to 20 years you'll see some potentially some meaningful projects underway.
One of the neat things I would add to that as well, HJ, is one of the concepts that some folks are doing some piloting on in Europe and talking about over here is well, to describe the process is called electrolysis, and what it does is you use electricity to separate water into hydrogen and oxygen, and the thought is that you could potentially use sort of excess renewable electricity when it's available, or perhaps at night in the off-peak when the wind's still blowing and the wind turbines are going. You could take that unused electricity or available renewable electricity, use it in the electrolysis process to create hydrogen. And then, of course, hydrogen, we believe, can be stored much like natural gas underground. So we could potentially use that as a way to basically store excess renewable power in the form of hydrogen, and then utilize that as a replacement for a portion of the natural gas. So that's one of the concepts that many folks are talking about and working on, and we're currently right now evaluating a few different studies and pilots in terms of how we can get involved. But it's we believe it's likely something that will play out over time, as HJ said.
So I had myself on mute for a second there. And I think this will likely be one of our last questions here this afternoon. In other states, like I think specifically Massachusetts and to a lesser degree Minnesota, the leaks to infrastructure, such as specifically pipelines, the both large pipes and the smaller pipes going to your home, that's a significant part of the conversation about a state's greenhouse gas footprints, and I don't really hear it talked about that much in Michigan. I'm curious to what degree identifying and addressing leaks within your system are playing into your thought process on carbon reduction.
Yeah, so it's a huge part of our process and our plans. In fact, identifying and fixing leaks are about 80% of the emissions on our system, and then also with our suppliers. So if we can eliminate all those leaks, we're going to really take care of a huge chunk of our emissions. So we're very focused on that. And as I said, a key way that we're doing that is through our renewal program. A big chunk of our system was built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so there's still a lot of cast iron pipe and old steel pipe out there in the ground. And when we go in and renew that with newer, better, tighter, more durable polyethylene plastic pipe, it basically eliminates the leaks on those sections of pipe that we're replacing. And that's where that renewal program that I described is so key. So eliminating leaks, Daniel, is a huge part of our plan. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would only add that in addition to that is we do have a program whereby we do what is called a leak survey, where we actually survey our system in various areas on a regular interval. We identify where leaks are. We add that to what we call our leak inventory, and then we strive to work that leak inventory down. We go out and we actually dig up the ground and fix the leak there on the spot. Now, if it's an older pipe, sometimes we'll try to renew it right there on, maybe a mile or so or something like that. But we're actively looking for, detecting, fixing leaks all the time as well.
You might be on mute, Daniel.
Did it again. Sorry, I'm actually at a campground right now, and I'm kind of trying to manage some lake and traffic noise behind me as well. The HG Matthew, do you have any closing thoughts for our program today?
Yeah, no, the only thing I would say is, again, thank you, Daniel, and to the organization. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Sorry that we're not together in person. Sorry, I can't see everybody. But feel free to reach out at any time if anyone wants to talk further, and also any interest in our voluntary green gas program, we'd love to talk to you. So really appreciate the time, and look forward to further input and conversations along the way. It's we get better as we get more feedback and have more conversations. So I hope we can keep that going over time.
Looking forward, and really appreciate you taking the time. HC, do you have any further thoughts?
Nope, I think Matt said it very well. Yep, I just appreciate the time and getting in front of people as it is. I wish I think I attended this last year and it was in a nice ballroom, but hopefully we can get back to that sooner or later. But and actually get to maybe mingle a bit during the breakouts and things like that, like the old days. But nope, just appreciate the time and appreciate everyone listening and asking good questions. This helps us.
Thank you, and thank you both for taking the time to talk to us. I also want to thank Jonathan Wilson, our local DTE manager, for setting this program up. Jonathan's been quite an aid to our program over the years as well. So again, thank you, Matthew, thank you, HG, and thank you everyone for participating today. We will be sending out a recording of this session, and within that we'll include the slides as well as further information on the voluntary green gas program. We're hopeful, if you're not already taking a look at that you do consider doing so. And if you have any follow-up questions, please do share those at your convenience. So again, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, HJ. Again, this was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.